pleasing Allah alone. And this was absolutely hurting her. The son whom she lavished a great deal of money, care and affection upon was just basic, not rebelling, but he was talking about, he's a Muslim, and she wanted to silence him. She wanted to silence him. And her hands shot out like an arrow, okay, to slap him across the face, okay? And her hand just stops. Just before it hits the face of Mu'sab, because she loves him so much. So she wants to hit Mu'sab to stop him, but she can't bring herself to do it because of this great love that she has for her son. But at the same time, she felt that something had to be done about Mu'sab Ibn Umayr. She's not going to leave this Islamic faith untouched. So what she does, she puts him under house arrest. Okay, and he is chained to a pillar in the house, chained. Okay, and she also had guards watching him so he doesn't try and slip out of these chains. Okay, so that's Mu'sab's second test. First of all, he has to declare Islam in front of his mother, and then he's put under house arrest and chained to the pillar in his mother's home. So she done this, and she prevented Mu'sab Ibn Umayr mixing with the Prophet ﷺ and the rest of the Muslims. Now maybe we can't relate with that, being put under house arrest by our own parents. But as we said, during this time the Sahaba went through great tests, and they had to fight to preserve their iman. Now, even though he was chained in the homes, many of the stories about Mu'sab ibn Umayr about the Sahaba being persecuted, it reached Mu'sab. He did hear about these things. The guards, they would be boasting to one another about what they're doing to Muslims in his presence. So Mu'sab ibn Umayr is hearing about everything that's going on, and he feels a great deal of sorrow in his heart. Maybe a person, they look at what's happening to other people and they say, you know, I'm glad I'm here. You know, as we see what's happening in Egypt and many other countries, many Muslims will say, you know, I'm glad I'm not over there, and they're going through that difficult situation. But this is not the way a Muslim thinks. Okay, he never wishes that he never wishes that, you know, he's not in that difficult situation. Other people have to go through that. This is, you know, backwards type of thinking. It's not the way of the Sahaba. And just an incident to demonstrate this, a Sahabi, he was caught after the battle of Badr. After the battle of Badr, he was caught by Abu Sufyan. This is before Abu Sufyan had accepted Islam. And so they're torturing him. They're poking him with spears. The children are throwing stones at him. He's being tortured. And then Abu Sufyan, he says, by Allah, don't you wish that Muhammad was in your place and I would be cutting his head off instead of yours? The Sahabi, he said, okay, by Allah. He swore by Allah as well and said, I wouldn't wish to be exchanged with the Prophet ﷺ, even if it was just being his feet pricked with a thorn. Okay, so he didn't say, oh, I wish that the Prophet was in my place and his head would be cut off. No, and he died after that. Okay, and this is the kind of love and affection that the Muslim you have for one another. Because we're not united by a nation, we're not united by a language. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. Very powerful ayah. How do you say the plural of brother in Arabic? Anyone know?
Ikhwan.
Ikhwan. They heard of the word Ikhwan before. Ya Ikhwan. Okay. But Allah didn't say إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَانٌ. He said إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَانٌ. Okay, now Ikhwan is a brotherhood or a friendship that's based on a common goal, alliance, or friendship. Okay? But Ikhwa is a brotherhood that's like blood brotherhood. Okay, so Allah didn't say إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَانٌ. He said إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. The believers are like blood brothers and blood sisters. Okay? And so life became difficult in Makkah, intolerable in Makkah. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he gave the commandment or gave the allowance for the Muslims to go and make hijrah to Abyssinia. Okay, the first hijrah. Now, straight away, Mu'sab Ibn Umayr, he breaks free from his chains and he sneaks out at night and he goes towards Abyssinia. Now, during that point, whilst in Abyssinia, the Prophet ﷺ, he received some ayat from Surah Al-Najm. Excuse me. He received some ayat from Surah Al-Najm. And the last portion of the surah is very powerful. Allah's talking about He's the one who makes you laugh and makes you cry. He's the one who gives you life and gives you death. All of these kind of examples. This is just Quran that you're amazed about and you're discussing. And then at the end of the surah, as we know, it makes sajda. Now as the Prophet ﷺ is reciting these ayat, okay, and he makes sajda, everyone that was in the vicinity of the Kaaba, Muslim and non-Muslim, they made sajda with him. The leaders of Quraysh prostrating to the Quran, subhanAllah, prostrating, sajda. And then when they got up, they said, oh, the Prophet must have put magic on us or something like this, something like this. But this news got back to Abyssinia. So the Muslims there, they thought that the people of Quraysh had accepted Islam, so they came rushing back. Mu'sab included. And when he came rushing back, he found that the situation was even worse than it was before. So when Mu'sab returns back to Makkah, his mother tries to have him imprisoned once again. Okay? So imagine all of these tests Mu'sab's going through. And remember, Mu'sab at this stage was a teenager. Okay, very, very young. And so Mu'sab, when he's given this ultimatum, I'm going to chain you again, he says, if anyone comes near me, I'm going to slay them. No one's going to stop me from being a Muslim. No one. When Mu'sab's mother saw the determination in his face and the tone in his voice, she knew he was telling the truth. She knew at that point that Mu'sab Ibn Umayr will never turn back on his faith. Never. The light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was in his heart. The love for the deen was in his heart. So she knew he would never, ever turn back. And so separation was inevitable. Okay? The separation between mother and son. The separation between Khannas and Mu'sab was inevitable. It was going to happen at some point because she's too firm on her disbelief and he's too firm on his iman. It's going to be a clash. And the way her personality was, she just could not accept having a son as a Muslim. Unacceptable in her eyes. So she threw him out of the house. Okay? Threw him out of the house and cut off all of the material luxuries that she would give him before. So remember Mu'sab in the beginning, he was well dressed, best clothes, best shoes, best perfume, clothes and shoes imported from Yemen, wives, all of these things, all of those material luxuries were cut off. And so she said to him, go to your own businesses. I'm not prepared to be a mother to you. You're not my son. I'm disowning you. Mu'sab Ibn Umayr, he said, mother, I sincerely advise you to accept Islam because I won't be able to do nothing for you on Yawm al-Qiyamah. She said, I swear by the shooting stars, I will never enter your religion. Never. And with that, Mu'sab Ibn Umayr and his mother separated. So Mu'sab Ibn Umayr, he left the home, the luxuries, the material comforts, and this elegant, well-dressed youth became a person that was seen in the most coarse attire, in the most rough attire. He went from having the best clothes to having one garment that was covered in holes, dusty, no shoes. But instead of striving to attain the dunya which he once had, he used his skills to promote the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to tell people about Islam. Now maybe if we lose something, we fight our hardest to get it back. Okay? He didn't fight to get back his nice clothes, his nice shoes, his nice perfume. All of that, he put it to the side. All of that, he forgot about it. It's not haram to have these things, but that was not his main concern. But maybe for some of us, the dunya and attaining dunya and attaining the pleasures of this life, it becomes our main concern. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, فَاتَّقُوا الدُّنْيَا. Fear, put a barrier in between yourself and the dunya. Okay? But the Prophet ﷺ in many hadith advising us and warning us from the temptation of the dunya, because it can make you forget the akhirah. There was a man who was a king, and he once asked a scholar, why do I hate death? Why don't I want to die? So the scholar said to him, you have built up something, you've built up your dunya, and you've destroyed your akhirah. So you don't want to go to something which is destroyed. You don't want to leave everything you've built up and go to something which is ruined. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ said, you know, be as a traveler or wayfarer in this world. Okay? So Mu'sab Ibn Umayr just spent his time trying to learn from the Prophet ﷺ and spreading the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now several years later, okay, during Mu'sab Ibn Umayr's mid-20s, the Prophet ﷺ is sitting down in a gathering, and the Sahaba are sitting around him, and Mu'sab Ibn Umayr, he starts to walk towards the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba. And all of them, they just looked down and lowered their gaze, because they saw the way he was now dressed. They saw what that belief in Allah had done to him. Everything was gone. Everything. Imagine. All of your clothes gone. All of your trainers gone. All of your money gone. All of your everything gone. Until you just look like a homeless person. One garment with holes, dusty. So the Sahaba, when they saw him, they just looked down, lowered their gaze, and they were moved to tears, because they saw the sacrifice that Mu'sab Ibn Umayr made for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now after calling people to Islam in Makkah, the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't have any success in that stage. And things were becoming very difficult for him due to the death of his uncle Abu Talib and the death of his wife Khadija radiallahu anha. Now he lost his tribal backing. Abu Talib commanded great power, physical power, so he could protect the Prophet, but also Khadija radiallahu anha was financing him, so all of that is gone. So he has to go and try to seek these things elsewhere. So he goes to Ta'if, and when it's at Ta'if, three of the leaders of Ta'if, they meet him, and the Prophet tells them, tells them about his message and his mission and why they should help. The first one, he said, I'm not even going to talk to you. Blanked him. I'm not even going to bother talking to you. The second one said, couldn't Allah find anyone better than you to send as a prophet? The third one said, if you are the prophet, then first and foremost, if you are a prophet, I'm not going to talk to you because you're too righteous. And if you're lying, then I'm too righteous to talk to you. Okay. The other one said, if you are the prophet, I'm going to go to the Kaaba and just tear down the little cloth. Obviously, this was seen, the Kaaba was seen as, even in those times, seen as very, very significant. So they just humiliated the Prophet ﷺ. And then at that point, he said to these men, okay, just don't tell anyone about what happened. Don't tell anyone that I came to you. Not only did they go and tell everyone, but they then had the children of Allah to stone the Prophet. And he had to flee for his life. And he was bleeding from head to toe. Prophet ﷺ. Now after being stoned, the future of Islam seemed bleak. He didn't have that base, he didn't have the finances, the numbers of the Muslims were, even though they were growing, were relatively small, didn't have no influence on the people of Makkah. The Prophet chose Mu'sab Ibn Umayr to be the ambassador of Islam and sent him to Medina to teach a small group of people that had accepted Islam at the pit of Aqaba. And so the Prophet